Alrighty, we are back again. And this time I have actually fixed my internet by buying a new router. It turns out my last router was broken or had some sort of fault. I was only getting like 16 megabytes a second on the speed test. Now I'm getting over 150. So hello and welcome to the stream, everyone. People are starting to filter into the room. We're doing live debates, so if you want to join the stream and debate the topic, request to join now. Let's get you on, let's answer some questions, let's have a conversation. So we're here to discuss, should all life go extinct to prevent suffering and to stop suffering, to prevent life from being forced to exist and forced to suffer, which is the current tragedy of the system that we live in and nature. No life should be forced to exist and to suffer, and they don't even get to choose their own story and path, really. If you understand determinism, then you know that your story isn't actually your own. You're just experiencing it. So, hello, Ludic. Thank you for joining us and for your comments and stuff on other videos. Good to see you in. Let's get someone in. If anyone would like to join and discuss, now is the time to request to join or to type in the chat. So should all life be made extinct to stop unfair suffering? Absolutely yes. There's no justification for turning a blind eye to suffering or allowing it or creating it for benefit. If you create suffering for your own benefit, that's obviously wrong, but allowing it is just as bad because the victims suffer the same, right? So it doesn't matter who's creating the suffering. If suffering exists, it's your responsibility to stop it and prevent it. Do you believe in veganism? Technically, if you actually look into it, as we have done, veganism can cause more suffering than it prevents. The thing is about veganism is that it essentially transfers worse suffering to wild animals. So, the problem with vegans is that they have zero consideration for wild animal suffering, WAS for short. And the land space taken up by animal agriculture is so vast that it essentially is for the greater good, despite how ironic and paradoxical that sounds. You have to look at everything in context and in nuance, right? Antinatalism and veganism, they sound like great ideas, but you have to look at the context, right? And to see, the bigger picture. And so actually both of them cause more suffering. So how does veganism cause more suffering? Deforestation, for example, is a massive part of animal agriculture. The amount of land taken up for non-vegan agriculture is absolutely ginormous, essentially. And that prevents wild animal suffering. And furthermore, wild animals have the worst conditions of all life on the planet. They have no shelter, no safety, no medicine, no euthanasia, nothing like that. Whereas farm animals at least have some sort of conditions, right? Now, I'm not saying that it's a good thing. I mean, all suffering is bad, whether it's farmed animals or wild animals. But to say that veganism is, a perfect thing is just complete nonsense, basically. And furthermore, veganism, sort of advocates for just not eating animals, and liberating them so that they can suffer in other ways, essentially. So veganism doesn't address the actual problem, which is that life and forced existence is the problem, and extreme suffering. Okay, we have someone requesting to join. Let's go. Hello, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you.
I love this take because it seems a bit unrelated, but I promise it is. But I'm not sure if you're an anime fan or a Marvel fan. And I was watching recently Attack on Titan and I was reflecting back on, Thanos. from Marvel, and
Yeah.
basically, within these protagonists and antagonists, their motive throughout, their story was essentially the extinction and to remove all life in order to make the world a better place.
Yeah.
And obviously, when you think in the sense of morality, it's not very moral, is it? But when you think about the ambiguity of it, and you actually think as on in the terms of everything that the human race has essentially done to the earth, and animals that live on it, and essentially where the earth is going as we speak, with this war that's going on with Iran, is extinction really the worst thing that could happen to us? So yeah, I really love this topic. Well, what do you think?
Yeah, it's a great question, actually. So we've actually done several parodies on Marvel and Batman and stuff like that. You can go on my channel and watch them if you scroll down far enough.
Yeah.
And the parodies that I've created with AI videos, basically cartoons, shows how Batman, for example, delivers a victim from safety and into more safety without realizing it. So he's optimistic, and that optimism causes and allows suffering, right? Now, Thanos, though, he wasn't really doing it for really proper ethical reasons. Thanos's reason was just we have overpopulation, so we just need to reduce the overpopulation, and that's it. So that's not a proper ethical thing to do, really. It was based on probably hatred or just stupidity, whatever.
Yeah.
So, wiping out half of the population doesn't really make sense to us. But yeah, I actually did another cartoon parody of Ultron saying that, we have to destroy the universe. And then, the Avengers come and try to stop him. And he says, "No, you fools. We have to stop the universe to stop life being," in my parody, "we have to stop life being forced to exist and forced to suffer. You're trying to protect the lucky ones, the privileged. I'm trying to protect the actual victims who are being forced to exist and suffer much worse, and who need the help far more than the lucky ones who want to run around and have fun at the expense of the unlucky." So, yeah, it is kind of a funny thing to think about, that the good guys are essentially the bad guys, and the other way around, in a way. Yeah.
I would really recommend you Attack on Titan, because that's basically
I've seen it. Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah.
Have you seen it? Yeah. So which side do you think you're on, Erin's or
Yeah, I'd probably be on Erin's side, to be honest. But obviously they're not true representations of extinctionism. So I'm not saying that they're accurate or
But I mean, in the context of their reasoning, in a sense.
I'd probably still be with Erin. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say it's very ambiguous, with the whole morality thing. But I really think I can see both sides, because me personally, I'm definitely, I would say, within my character, I'll definitely say I'm a more empathetic person, so I can see more, both sides. I would say on everyone else's side, I would really say that, with Erin killing everyone, obviously there's, innocent people on both sides, and so on and so forth. But, if Erin isn't, going to kill all these people, then his people who are also innocent and have done nothing are going to die. So it's that kind of thing. It's even what you're talking about with veganism, in a sense, it's not necessarily the most moral, because not the most ethical. So it's, it's, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, extinctionism, just to reiterate it, it's not about killing. It's more about prevention. The majority of the victims we want to help, in the future, billions of years of more pointless suffering. That's what we want to stop and prevent, essentially.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's out of compassion and ethics and responsibility, essentially. No life should be forced to exist. That's obviously bad. and no life should suffer terribly. That's obviously bad. So
Yeah.
we have life forms that are essentially being put into hell unfairly. Innocent babies, stuff like that, tortured, and yeah, it's terrible. And only extinction can guarantee that that's not going to happen again, because without extinction, life is just going to keep reproducing and forcing more innocent lives to exist and suffer terribly.
This is kind of unrelated but related at the same time. Do you believe in AB?
AB, what's that?
So I don't know if I can say it on here. I don't want to get your life banned, but when women kind of stop themselves from getting pregnant, but once they already are.
Oh, right. We don't really have a massive position on that, but generally speaking, one thing to consider, which most people don't, is that for every human that exists, hundreds of thousands or potentially millions of wild animals are prevented from existing because
Exactly, yeah.
human takes up an insane amount of resources, and land is committed to that human, essentially. How much farmland is producing all of the food you eat every day. So lots of land is taken up that would have otherwise be just full of wild animals killing each other and being tortured.
So when you say extinction, are you speaking in the context just specifically of human life or in general?
So kind of the opposite of human life in a way. So the thing is, humans are the only ones capable of carrying out extinction, and to do it in a thorough way to make sure that suffering doesn't come back and redevelop. So humanity is the vehicle for helping others. Essentially, we want to help as much life as physically possible on Earth and potentially beyond Earth, before we, as the only ones capable of helping, address our own suffering in that sense.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it's either extinction or world peace, and I know the second option definitely isn't happening. So,
Exactly.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, feel free to join our Discord if you want to talk about it more. Just Google search "Abolish Suffering Discord" and come and chat.
Thank you, I will. So, is this an actual movement or is it more of like
No, it's an
just
actual
an
movement.
idea?
Yeah, it started 2 years ago. It was started by someone who was a vegan activist for a long time and an animal liberation activist. But they realized that it didn't make sense that you can save animals over and over again, but they're just going to keep being forced to exist and suffer. So how do you stop that from happening? And he invented the movement, and it's been growing. We've got a website, proextinction.com. We've got dozens of social media channels with activists working around the clock to spread the message and grow the movement, and develop the movement, develop the messaging, and working towards actually doing this. The thing is, we have like infinite victims depending on us.
Even that's why I feel as though I'm also against zoos and animal preservation. And I think we're putting so much resources into animals that will, because their excuse is that, oh, but at the end of the day we take them out, we put them back out into the world, but where are those animals going to go? Into another controlled area, which is also being funded, and that in doing that is also taking away from people who may also need that money, for animals are going to die anyway. So in that kind of sense, and and I feel as though if people actually want to help, they need to look at the root cause, the root problem.
Yeah, like good point about the zoos. Everyone's probably heard about that monkey called Punch, I think his name is. He's that famous monkey that's making the rounds on social media because he keeps getting bullied in his enclosement. Really, really badly bullied. I mean, like extreme physical abuse. Like beating the shit out of him, essentially.
I've never seen that. It's interesting.
Yeah, let me just Google it.
Is there a reason as to why he's being bullied, or?
So if you search Punch the monkey, as in like punch, which is ironic because he is getting actually punched every day. Just Google Punch monkey and it'll come up, and it's really tragic. And so he's in a zoo, with other monkeys, and for whatever reason, he's the weak one, and they are just bullying the ever living shit out of him all day, every day, like extreme abuse.
And
And
now they're making donations out of this monkey that's being punched up.
yeah, so I mean,
Oh my god.
how this monkey just shouldn't have been forced to exist and suffer, basically, and people are just watching it for entertainment.
I'm not sure if you'll know, but is the monkey being abused due to it lacking, you know, its natural kind of
I
instincts?
think it might be an orphan, and it didn't get a good start to life, basically, and it's a
Oh,
bit of an outcast, and they just pick on him. And I saw a video yesterday of a adult monkey swinging him around and then throwing him against a wall.
whoa,
All sorts of crazy horrors that this poor monkey's going through, right?
that's crazy.
You
Does
know,
this happen in the wild, or is this
this is in a
completely?
zoo.
Oh, I mean, do the same situations happen in the wild
Oh
in
yeah,
natural habitats? Of,
absolutely, yeah,
oh, okay,
yeah, yeah, it's
that's
really,
crazy.
yeah. So there's no good coming from that monkey being alive, really.
Yeah,
Any moments of serenity he has are just, the eye of the storm, basically.
yeah. Yeah, I agree. So let's say like there were petitions and there was a whole movement that took place and there was a good chance of this extinction thing to happen. What do you think? Like, do you think it should actually be taken, seriously? Like it should actually go through with?
Yeah, no, we're fully serious about it, right? We have to be. There's nothing more urgent than preventing life forms from being forced to exist and be tortured, basically. Veganism just wants us to not eat the animal, um, but they don't care about all the suffering that they're forced to endure in the meantime, like before the death, right?
Yeah.
And even farm animals, not all of them, obviously, but some of them get euthanized in some sort of ethical way, maybe. But wild animals don't get that. Is the point, right? They get much worse than that. So,
Yeah.
vegans aren't really actually considering what's best for all animals.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I agree. Honestly, I can't say if it was. I can understand where the movement comes from and the ethics behind the movement, but to say that to actually put an organization through, like an organization were to go through with the whole extinction thing, I'm
That's
not
what.
sure because even though me myself, I'm not really obviously I'm grateful and I love my life and but I would understand the ethics behind it and I really wouldn't be bothered if it did come to a position where they were like, you know what, yeah, all of you are getting extinct. Do you know what I mean? I'll be like, oh, okay, fair enough. That that would be. But I know a lot of people who, innocent people who love their lives and wouldn't necessarily want to go through with it, and it's that kind of weighed chance of should we allow these, in the context of this, theoretically, if this were to happen, it should we give these people a chance to live and seek their lives through, or should we do what's basically the greater good if we're talking about it ethically
Exactly. Yeah.
and extinct all these people, which I'm still pretty ambiguous about personally, but I can see and understand where the ethics come from. So yeah, I see it. I see it. Even with this, the war that we see going on with Iran and the USA at the moment, people are scared that it's going to become a world war and more people are going to be involved. And I don't find it funny, obviously, but I find the thought of people in westernized, because obviously I live in the UK, if you couldn't tell. Was born and raised here. My grandma came here as an immigrant, right? I've got African heritage. My mum was born here. So the thought, and I see, because obviously I have African heritage, and I'm not from Congo personally, but I see people in Sudan and people in Congo. Nigeria is about to have a world war. And then I see obviously Palestine, what they're going through, and Ukraine and that and so forth. And people, to put it short, people didn't give a shit. They would look on the news, go, "Oh well, boohoo," and they wouldn't care. But as soon as it's happening, to them, and they see, what war and suffering, the thought of war and suffering happening to them, they go, "Oh, that's not meant to happen here. That's not meant to be here." Do you know what I mean? But I feel as I was saying earlier about how I'm a pretty empathetic person. But if that can happen to another person, why shouldn't it happen to me? If that makes sense in that kind of context, like what is so special about me? That why wouldn't it happen here? If that makes sense.
People are optimistic, basically, right? When they
Yeah,
have a child, they're optimistic about it's going to have a good life.
yeah,
But when it goes wrong and they have a really bad life, that's the harmful result of their optimism, right? So people have blinders on, essentially, right? They're just irresponsible. I mean, humans are just animals at the end of the day.
yeah,
Just slightly more evolved monkeys, really.
definitely, yeah, yeah. And I see that kind of superiority kind of manifest in loads of different contexts, and that kind of optimism, like you were saying, you know manifest and create recreated, and it's just like it's a whole, it's all messed up, really. It really is. Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us, though, and you should, check out our resources. Our 23 episode podcast is now available on all major platforms. Just search Pro Extinction Podcast, and you'll find it on any platform: Apple, Spotify, etc., YouTube. Join our Discord as well. If you want to talk more about it, we can talk to you there. You can meet the team. Ask us some questions, and maybe do activism with us if you're interested. Or you can read our manifesto and our lengthy FAQ page on our website, proextinction.com.
Thank you. Right, thank you.
Thank you for coming on. Okay, that was a great conversation. Who's next? Yeah, you've got a point there, Adrian. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm an alien. Hello.
Hi, can you hear me all right?
Yes, loud and clear. How are you doing?
I talk funny because I've had a stroke. Now I've got that out of the way. Are you vegan?
No, I did actually go vegan a couple of years ago, but I had extreme allergies, and I wasn't able to carry on with it. I actually tried for several months, and I tried every different type of food possible, but I was so overwhelmingly ill. It was insane. I had to give it up.
Okay, so you're paying for the suffering and those animals to be forced to be bred into existence, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're a massive hypocrite, correct?
The thing is, it's impossible to not cause any suffering or harm. Like no one can be a saint in that sense, right? And I wouldn't say it's hypocrisy. No, I would say it's the lesser of two evils. Because
Yeah, I'd say it's hypocrisy.
the thing is that veganism actually just transfers worse suffering to wild animals.
Right. Your take on veganism is incorrect as well. It's not a diet, it's a lifestyle, it's a movement. Are you aware of that?
Yeah.
We don't just care about not eating the animal.
Okay. What else is there about?
Lots of things. Have you looked into it?
A little bit, yeah.
How much? What can you tell me? What's the definition of veganism?
It's about the extended rights, right?
No.
Like giving animals kind of the same rights as humans, something like that.
Nope.
Okay, I mean, I think lots of people have different definitions. So why don't you go ahead and give us your version?
Well, I don't have my own specific version. We want to abolish the forced breeding of these innocent beings, but we want to abolish use and sorry, you have to bear with me, but my brain doesn't work correctly anymore. We want to abolish the abuse and the how we treat them, and that extends to people as well. You know,
Yeah,
we are intersectional.
good. Yeah, we would say that veganism doesn't go far enough, basically, right? It's good that you said that they shouldn't be bred into existence, but we should extend that to all life.
But you pay towards that.
Yeah, so the thing is that our research has shown that by going vegan, you actually cause more and worse suffering to wild animals because animal agriculture takes up an enormous amount of land compared to vegan agriculture. So vegan
Ask
agriculture
you
is
what
very
your
efficient.
source is? What's your source for that research?
Yeah, so it's actually all on our website. If you go
No,
to
what's your source where you did that research?
Yeah, so I'm just going to pull that up right now.
I don't, no
It's from
disrespect.
UNICEF.
I'm
It's from
just interested
UNICEF.
in your work.
It's Our World in Data. So
Right?
you can go to our website proextinction.com, go on the full FAQ, and go down to question 33, and you can read all about it, see the graphics, all of the data. But basically, yeah, vegan agriculture is so insanely efficient and takes up that
Vegan.
land
Sorry,
that
you're gonna have to
essentially,
explain vegan agriculture to me because, I mean, what is vegan agriculture to you?
well, for example, non-vegan agriculture results in deforestation, right?
Hmm.
So
But
that
you and
deforestation
I, you and
prevents
I
wild
eat the
animals suffering.
same vegetables, yes?
Say again?
You and I eat the same vegetables, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah. So I don't have vegan agriculture.
but the protein source, right? That's the big differences.
What's my protein source?
I don't know, is it lentils maybe, or soy, probably?
I have many protein sources.
Yeah, and I tried all of them, and I was allergic to like every single one. But
Well,
yeah,
that's
basically,
your
like I said,
fault.
that deforestation that prevents a lot of wild animal suffering, and wild animals have far worse conditions than farm animals.
Well, yes, I mean, I rescue, or used to rescue wildlife, um, and I was a wildlife rehabilitator for, I don't know, the best part of 2 decades, so I know they're suffering. But, I mean, animal agriculture is the leading reason for deforestation.
Exactly, and that's a good thing.
What do you mean a good thing?
So by preventing there being space for wild animals to exist and suffer, you're preventing their suffering.
But in the meantime, other animals are suffering, correct?
Yeah, some animals are going to suffer either way, essentially. So, it's kind of a lose-lose situation. And so the solution is extinctionism.
I mean, this is just, it's blown my mind. I mean, you do make some goodish points, but as a human that does suffer greatly, I think it's a blessing that we get to see this world, to be honest.
But at what cost?
What do you mean at what cost?
You
I'm
know,
38. I'm 38. I've had 2 strokes. I've got lots of things wrong with me, but do I regret or feel sorry for myself? No. I've had an amazing life and I'm grateful for the things I've seen.
but we shouldn't assume that everyone else is having the same great experience, right?
No, I don't assume that for a second. But you should also not assume that everyone would want extinction.
We don't assume that, but
Okay, so
we do know that extinction would prevent, babies from being tortured and abused pointlessly.
you would force that extinction on people that don't want it,
Yeah,
right? And how is that morally correct?
it's for the greater good, right?
How is that morally correct?
If it's, in the interest of the greater good, then it's by default morally correct.
Okay, do you know what? I don't think I can continue this conversation. Have a good life.
All right. Thanks for coming on. Take care. You can, again, read all about veganism and our data and thorough explanations on it on our website. If you go to the full FAQ page and scroll down to question 33. TikTok's giving me another restriction because they're pro-life bastards. Right, someone else wants to come on. Has it worked? Okay, yeah, start requesting to join now, guys. The queue is essentially empty. So if you'd like to come on and give us your opinion, now's your chance. Yeah, let's try and get someone that is actually capable of, defending their points and arguments. Again, we don't. In a way, we can kind of shit on people for having terrible opinions, but at the same time, I can be empathetic to the fact that it's not their fault they're stupid, right? So it's kind of a duality almost. Right, we have someone else requesting to join. No, Black and Grey, you've burnt that bridge. Hello. How's it going?
Pretty good. I don't know if I have an argument. So this is extinction, pro-extinction. So extinctualism.
Extinctionism.
Okay. I'm just wondering. It might be a silly question. I don't mean to be smart, Alec, in any way, or an asshole. Excuse my language. But are you going to be the first to go? Are you ready? If there was a worldwide offing, are you first? Are you going to do it? Would you make yourself extinct? Right now.
If we had like a button that would delete the universe or something, then maybe, yeah, I'd push the button. Sure.
Okay. So you would do it for yourself and all mankind with one button. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, you say all mankind, but it's for all life, animals as well.
All life. Okay. Wow. What are we
Animals
saving
can't
then?
make decisions, right? So people just kind of ignore them and say, "What about the humans and their desires?" But
No, I hear you. I hear you. Complete extinction. What are we saving then? Oh, suffering?
yeah, I mean, every single
Okay.
life form born is forced wrongly to exist, right? And then they suffer terribly. A lot of them, most of them actually, and have bad lives. So we want to prevent people and animals from being forced into bad lives, right?
Right. I get that. I've had a bad life. And I don't know. Push the button, hell. You know what I'm saying? But seriously, another question. Um, so, well, um, I forgot it actually. Hang on. I had a good question. So, if there's no suffering, how do we know grace and peace and the lack? You know what I'm saying? How do we know the good if we don't experience some suffering? How do we know non-suffering? That's a really good question, isn't it?
I mean, yeah, I mean, but, non-existence is bliss, it's safety, right? What do we want to be safe from, right? I mean, the worst
Right.
thing, the most terrible thing that we care and prioritize being safe from is extreme suffering, right? Which is why people will gladly tell you that if they're about to be kidnapped, to be assaulted and tortured to death, they'd probably rather just be painlessly euthanized instead, right? People say they'd like to pass away in their sleep in their bed, right, at the end of their life. They'd like a bliss and safety from a terrible death or a terrible life, right?
Right. Well, do you think that something went wrong to create the suffering that we see in the world today? Where did it go wrong? Where is the pivotal point?
Yeah, we would say that existence itself, right? Reality, even. A lot of people ask this kind of question, right? Like, is extinctionism giving up? Is it saying, the world isn't good enough to continue? But no, extinctionism is saying that no world is good enough to continue, right? Any world that has any suffering or risk of terrible suffering and bad lives is a bad thing, right? So that, even from the start of life on this planet, animals were suffering terribly and being tortured, right? You have to have positive motivators to function, and you have to have negative motivators like pain and suffering, right? So that you can, learn, or, if you felt no pain, you would very quickly break all of your bones, get burnt, scratch your eyes out by accident, that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, true. We would be extinct already. We would have inadvertently after.
We wouldn't have
Elves.
propagated as a
I'm trying to
species.
be
Right. Yeah.
right. Yep, I see what you're saying there. Right. Very interesting. Okay, can I ask you one more question? Do
Sure.
you believe in the body, soul, and spirit? So are you just talking about extinct bodies? Is there
No, our
something
movement is
else?
atheistic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
we don't really think a god would create this much suffering. But
Right.
we're
Yeah.
empirical, scientific. If someone could show proof of God, then we would accept it, right? But we have to work on what we can see and work with, basically.
Well, one can take on the theories and um, formulas put forth in what this world says is God's word and read results using scientific methods, but it's a very individual thing. That's how I did it. you know and its findings are, in my experience, the findings are irrefutable. No one can take it away from me, the experience that I had scientifically proving God to myself. And I say scientifically, meaning using scientific methods. But, one would have to take it on themselves. But H2O does make water. It really does. So I would just urge you in that area to
Even if
make
God
sure
did
that
it,
you
right, we
study
would
everything.
still fight for extinctionism. We would fight for preventing babies from being abused, right? So, there's no
Yeah.
world in which we're going to be okay with babies getting tortured.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Well, thanks for letting me ask those questions. I hope that they were not mundane.
No, perfectly good questions. Thank you for coming on.
Sure. Bye.
Hey, we've got some interesting stuff in the chat that I'm reading here. Apparently I'm being accused of international fraud or something. Okay. Right, who's next? Let's have a look. Oh, okay. Yeah, we've got someone. Hello, how you doing?
Hey, good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
I've I have very limited exposure to this idea. It's pretty interesting, and I thought I could I had so many questions. I thought I could ask someone who clearly has probably thought about a lot of the objections and different angles to it. I guess I don't know where to begin. Do you have time for a lot of a lot of different questions? How much time do I have? I guess.
Let's just see how we go.
Okay, cool. You got. I'll start with like my assumption. I guess my assumption is that this would be done in the least suffering way, where people are just not going to reproduce anymore, so we go into extinction in the least gruesome way possible, or something. Yeah.
I mean, the priority is always basically the greater good, the greater amount of suffering. So, for example, if extinction has to be painful but prevents more suffering, then it's still a good thing, right? I mean, suffering is always bad, but the greater good has to take priority. And in terms of not reproducing, no, that's the opposite. Humanity has to keep going until we've prevented as much suffering as physically possible for as much life as possible on Earth and potentially beyond Earth. Just as much life as we can, essentially. We should help as many life forms as possible, and then we can close the door behind ourselves.
Interesting. I guess. Well, I wasn't gonna go there yet, but because you brought the life other places, I mean, given how limited we are in how much of space we can explore and how vast it is, and would you, until we've had a close to exhaustive view and understanding of what's out there, would you not advocate for the extinction kind of route until all of those things are explored to be certain that there's I think I heard like we've only seen about 5% of what the night sky has to show us, or in terms of astronomy, excuse me.
So there's really just extreme suffering and then fun, right? And maybe a bit of pleasure. That's kind of the two sides of the coin that we're dealing with. So we don't really think there's anything else out there worth preserving. So if 50% of aliens are having a great time, but the other 50% are being tortured, we just we have to go with zero tolerance on suffering, right? So zero suffering at all and any cost, right? There's nothing that can kind of make suffering justifiable.
So then, would it be fair to say that maybe this, having that goal in mind, that if we were going to go into extinctionism, this would be something thousands of years in the future when we can really properly explore space and whatnot? Is that fair to say?
So we want to have animal extinction as fast as possible on Earth, and begin the project of universal extinction, or however much of the universe is possible. That might just be the galaxy, but we might be able to go beyond it. Who knows? Some people are even saying, what if there's a multiverse? Well, if we get to that bridge, we'll cross it when we get there. So, potentially it could be like Star Trek, where we're flying around in, carrying out missions in space. Who knows? But yeah, we just have to prevent as much suffering as physically possible. That's where it all stems from.
So I guess then the next question I'd have, I mean, I think are you a materialist and atheist and all of that, right?
Yeah.
Same here. So you're no objections to abiogenesis and how, life came from, organic kind of matter, etc. That's all pretty, no objections from you on that stuff, I would imagine, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I guess then my question would then be, wouldn't this be some kind of an exercise of futility, because theoretically doing this stuff will just make this organic, non-life stuff go ahead and, evolve and change and become conscious creatures at some point, which we wouldn't really be around anymore because we extincted ourselves and to prevent their suffering, on our planet and potentially, millions of other planets that might potentially exist?
Well, yeah. So, firstly, if we reduce lots of suffering in the meantime between that happening, then that's a good thing. And secondly, the most important part of extinctionism is prevention. So it's about preventing suffering and life from developing. So that's one of our greatest challenges, essentially. But we don't think it's pointless or impossible.
One other thing, I'm sure you've probably heard of transhumanism, right?
Yeah.
The idea that as technology, medicine, all these things become better. I mean, we can probably say over the span of the last 150 years, the suffering for humans at least has become much less in developed countries. We can prevent quite a bit of it, and who knows how much more of it we can prevent. I would imagine, as a fellow materialist, you would put suffering or these types of stimuli all kind of are registered and felt to the sentient being in the brain. So essentially, as neuroscience, all these things become better. There's a possibility, at least, right, that we can make the human experience completely not have suffering, or have just a perpetual euphoric experience that people have, even if you were to just, as a sentient creature exists, have them kind of plugged in like the Matrix into a little shell, and they have this euphoric existence. Maybe they perpetuate and bring about other life that has that type of existence as well. And now on a utilitarian type of basis, you are making that equation even better. You're increasing, euphoria and happiness. So if this is a realistic goal under the premises of the extinction movement, wouldn't this be the thing to aspire towards rather than making everybody extinct? Or do you find this to be a unrealistic or unachievable goal?
We can do both, right? But you can't have one without the other, essentially.
I guess, wouldn't we have to make that a goal of ours before we can? I suppose if that was the goal, right, that might completely change our behavior right now, right? Let's just say human beings have become exceedingly well at mastering their environment, taking the natural world, bending it to their will to serve as some sort of benefit to human beings, right? So essentially, if that's the case, I mean, that might make us not want to make a certain animal species go extinct. For instance, the Gila monster lizard is one of the things that we got the GLP-1 type of medications and whatnot to help people with diabetes, etc. So essentially, keeping a lot of the natural world at our disposal to endeavor to create this new reality, at which point, whenever it becomes feasible, we switch, and now all of a sudden humans and animals and everything, we can just have this perpetually euphoric, crop-like existence where everybody is born into some sort of a shell, plugged into this amazing type of feeling where their entire life is bliss, and that can perpetuate throughout the world. And we keep a small contingent of people to keep doing research and going and finding and spreading this new amazing existence to other potential areas that have sentient life.
So, even if that's possible, the priority always has to be suffering prevention, right? And prevention of risk of suffering. So even if your transhumanist world still had a risk of going wrong, a risk of victims, if there wasn't a 100% guarantee of safety and risk-free, then we would be against it, right? For the sake of those that would be at risk because of it.
I would imagine one thing would be, even if I took this on a mathematical basis, right, just as a utilitarian, right, and you believe in, like, let's say the B theory of time. So let's say all of the past life and all of the future life, potential life, all have kind of a similar weight to our equation. I would imagine that this transhumanist endeavor would have the larger payoff, because once that threshold is reached, we can perpetuate this type of happiness and continue to prevent suffering and be here to enforce this new reduced suffering world. Whereas what we can be assured of if we were to extinct ourselves is that this new world will have to develop, and all of this suffering will have to be left in its wake until we reach sentient creatures that then have the philosophical idea of extinctionism, and then have the technological and social and all of this kind of ability to implement that. So you're potentially, by doing that, leaving on the table this entire 4 billion years of evolution that happened just on our planet to lead to this point, and all of the suffering it left in its wake. Whereas by endeavoring to do the transhuman stuff, I mean, when we look at the last 100 years or 150 years and the amount of progress we've made in reducing suffering from the human experience, I would find that just mathematically to be much more of a promising path to reduce suffering in the world.
Yeah, so I mean, the thing is, you could potentially make it so that, one possibility for extinctionism is that we might be able to, leave robots to carry on the mission, right? So we might be able to have total extinction as far as all life that is known, including humanity, and leave the rest of the mission and sort of the guarding of Earth or whatever other planets, whatever, to robots, right? And part of that mission for the robots could be to make that decision that you're talking about. So you don't actually have to have animals getting abused, children being tortured. We can just get rid of all of this suffering and prevent all of it, essentially. And furthermore, the thing is, essentially, you're kind of suggesting that we use the suffering of others for benefit, right? But it's not acceptable at all, right? It can only be done. It's only acceptable if it's in the pursuit of the greater good and ending more suffering. Causing suffering or allowing it for the sake of pleasure is wrong and unacceptable. And if you understood just how extreme the suffering is and can be, then I think you'd probably realize that it's not an acceptable suggestion.
My apologies, I might have not articulated myself clearly. No, I'm not saying as in terms of particularly trying to heighten or make suffering worse or anything like that in pursuit of that, or accelerate suffering in pursuit of that.
I know you're not saying to make suffering worse, but for example, there's no reason not to have a suffering-free planet with no animals, right?
You mean like have it today?
I'm saying that animals don't need to exist, right? So even in your hypothetical, animals don't need to just keep suffering pointlessly, right?
Well, what if our endeavor is including the liberation of animals from suffering, basically? Perhaps the animals or certain species or all species could potentially have the benefits of the perpetually euphoric experience. And you brought up something interesting. I didn't even, because I don't know if this falls under the transhumanism type of idea, but when you brought up robots, I mean, if as a materialist, I think essentially all we are a bunch of electrical and chemical signals in our brain. So technically, if we were to just go from a biological existence to a digital existence too, that's yet another way we can all turn into robots, basically, upload our minds into a brain. I think that would be a real easy sell for humanity. A person saying, hey, do you want to exist forever? But now you're in this human shell, your first person perspective, your thoughts, memories, feelings, emotions, everything is all present, minus any potential suffering, pain receptors that you would feel. People would sign up for that in a heartbeat. And I'd imagine even animals, we make a bunch of sentient animal dogs and stuff. We have like sperms and eggs and whatnot that we save if we wanted to ever potentially make new sentient life in this way. And we can perpetuate our species in this non-biological form and then seek out other biological form species, sentient life, to transition into this type of existence. That would take care of the potential of future evolution happening, of sentient life that'll inevitably have the ability to suffer, and it'll allow us to enforce this. And over the long run, over the if we look at the horizon, the event horizon for far into the future, we can prevent much more suffering. And of course, doing all of this I would advocate for having, strong rules and ethics boards and whatnot to make sure that we aren't unnecessarily, doing anything and raising the suffering of people on our path to that eventual goal.
So no, there's a zero tolerance policy on suffering, basically. We should never ever use victims and allow them to suffer for benefit, for pleasure, right? It will never be acceptable.
But I don't. But where's my? I don't. I'm so sorry. I don't understand where I said. I don't get the. I'm not trying to be.
That we shouldn't do extinction, and instead we should have, essentially a pleasure machine or something, right? But unless that pleasure machine is as instant as clicking your fingers and rapturing every single life up to heaven with 100% guarantee of godlike safety, right? Then it's not acceptable, right? It's wrong. And the thing is that extinction is already possible. Humanity has already made several species go extinct. We already control animal populations in an incredibly big way. We control the planet in an incredibly large way. So extinction is already happening and possible. And, essentially achieving godlike power and to be able to just click your fingers and, create perfection for every animal, it's not realistic, right? So we have to go with a realistic way of preventing suffering, right?
I guess what's the what would the extinction policy look like now? Wouldn't making animals go extinct also necessarily include some suffering to reach that end that we find tolerable? Now we're using suffering as a means to a more noble end, as you might see it, basically, that yes, animals, you're going to suffer, but then boom, no more suffering because extinction, Wouldn't that still be instrumentalizing suffering for a more desirable end, even in your paradigm?
But what would be wrong with that?
Because I thought the objection was it's wrong. There's a zero tolerance policy that we should not instrumentalize suffering, use the suffering of sentient creatures as a means to an end, however noble that said end might be.
No. So we shouldn't use victims and suffering for our pleasure and to have fun, right? But if it's strictly necessary to do it in the pursuit of ending a larger amount of suffering, then you have to prioritize the larger amount of suffering. It's completely irrational to prioritize a smaller amount of suffering if it's necessary, right? So obviously we would rather there be no suffering, but if it's really turns out to be necessary, and also, extinction will most likely not be painful. Euthanasia for animals, for example, is usually quite painless, right?
I guess just to think to clarify my point, I guess I wouldn't, when I say a thing that makes you feel pleasure, I mean I could neutralize that claim a little bit and say, sorry about that. I got a phone call. Basically, I can say that I can neutralize that part of it by saying it's not to feel pleasure. It's just to prevent suffering. If that makes it sound more grotesque, I that wasn't my intention. But the idea is that just in the same way that I can euthanize an animal, or I can do a bunch of different things to reduce suffering. By causing an immediate ending to someone's existence. Perhaps we can also have ways of, let's just say, drugging up animals so they're in a perpetual thing of like morphine. Basically, they're not really suffering. They're just kind of having this weird experience where they're basically doped out
No,
basement
I
until
mean
we
that sounds
figure
terrible.
everything out.
That sounds firstly that sounds terrible, and secondly, it's extremely impractical, right? How many different species of animals are there on the planet? How many animals are there on the planet? And in what diversity of experiences and environments are they in, right? Some are at the bottom of the ocean. Some of them are born with mutations. Some of them are born with wildly different physiologies compared to the others, right? Evolution, for instance.
But one might argue that taking all these swaths of millions and billions of animals and euthanizing them one by one has an equal or maybe greater issue in terms of practicality. So that's why I was taking practicality out of the.
But you're essentially saying that we need to, send them. The thing is, right? Unless there's an absolute 0% chance of it going wrong, which doesn't sound like your hypothetical includes that, then it's wrong. And again, it's extremely unrealistic. You're saying we should just drug them up with morphine and stuff like that. That sounds absolutely terrible. So we already control animal populations. We already do deforestation and things like that. These are extremely easy things to do, extremely practical things to do, and extremely doable things. Whereas you're suggesting, to steel man your argument, to rapture everyone up to heaven. So no, you go to an animal that's suffering, you can euthanize it, but you can't send it to heaven, right? If you want to, rapture everyone up to heaven, then go away and, create that technology. But saying that we should, give morphine to mosquitoes and stuff, it's just ridiculous.
No, certainly. I guess I wasn't thinking a pragmatic, because I would say the 0% argument. I mean, I would imagine there isn't 100% chance or a 0% chance of anything technically, even in the extinction plan. Basically, we might very well fail. In fact, there's almost a certainty, I would argue, that life will come about again, right? So we have to manage some of these issues, and I guess if we're going to manage some of these risks in a pragmatic way, it would be basically by continuing existence to some capacity so we can carry through the mission of reducing suffering. And then on the other part of saying that having an objection where something sounds terrible is seems like a moral appeal, right? And I guess I'm fine with that in terms of my moral framework. I'm a moral emotivist, and I would imagine a lot of people might find the intentional extinction of a bunch of creatures would also sound bad or grotesque and have a similar objection to it. If I was to go down that path, I could simply pose an objection where hey, look, I guess there's a bunch of animals like ourselves that are suffering. Let's put the animals, let's put, sentient, animals, let's put like human beings that can, that are more advanced form of sentience. All of these human beings that are existing and continuing to exist despite the suffering. So in light of the suffering, whatever amount of non-suffering and suffering they have, that they have an existence that they find, or a life that they find is worth living, right? And our evidence of that is because most people quite easily can end their existence on their own volition, right? Yeah. So I guess, what's the objection to that part?
To say that most people can just kill themselves is firstly morally reprehensible, and secondly extremely inaccurate. There's lots of people. I would lean towards saying that the majority of humans that want to unalive themselves are incapable of doing it.
Is it because of their lack of access to, let's just say, I mean, if I was to take the United States,
do you think it's an easy thing to do? Do you think it's as easy as making a cup of coffee?
It's not that it's easy. There's a lot
of anxiety with going to an interview. What kind of anxiety do you think they have with slitting their wrists and going off into some other form of existence that they have no idea about?
So I guess even if I was to completely take that argument that it's not, and so then the argument would just be that no, trust me, you don't want to exist, even though you might have an objection. Like even though you might express a lack of consent to this decision that I've made philosophically, that no, trust me, it's going to be better for you. I guess like even if I was to take away that thing as a form of evidence, would you accept a person saying no, I have a life that's worth living. I want to keep living it. I don't want to be extinct. And then would the extinctionist movement say, well, too bad.
That's never been the way the world works, though. The world has never worked that way. I mean, what you're suggesting is just completely disconnected from reality, right? People making decisions for others.
I was just asking the question.
Is the absolute norm and default. So no, we wouldn't respect the opinions of others like that. In the same way that police don't respect the consent of criminals. They have to stop the criminals, right, and do the thing that's right for the greater good, essentially.
I guess that sounds, that part of it again. I don't like bringing up because I'm a moral emotivist. I don't like bringing that up, but that sounds grotesque in and of itself. I mean, to have a person who is alive and living a life that they find meaningful and fulfilling, and they want to continue living, to be told by force that that's just not how the world works. Trust me, bro. There's a greater, goal we're achieving here, and you euthanize them. Let's just say, and that would be what. Doesn't that seem grotesque to you?
Man, TikTok keeps sending me restrictions. I guess they disagree with my opinions. So, no, basically. I mean, sure, it's grotesque in some ways, but you're only looking at the minority of the suffering, right? So you're not actually considering the greater number of victims. You're ignoring them.
What would you put a consent clause into your thing where it's like, hey, just the people who consent, and then just wait and see, somebody's going to be through hard times, and we'll offer that euthanasia thing to them on a platter, but it would just be like a forced. So the goal would be to compel the bodies in our society that have a monopoly on force to basically G-side everything in existence and do it in the least suffering way. And that would be the ultimate goal, to serve this, what I would imagine you would say is a higher than, I mean, there isn't a 0% chance. In fact, I would almost say there's 100% certainty that life will continue on even after we do that. I think you would still.
But that's not our plan. Our plan isn't to just do it and then forget about it, right? So you're misrepresenting our movement entirely, right? So
I'm sorry, I might have misunderstood.
Yeah, so the problem you're presenting of, oh, what if it comes back? That is actually the main part of extinctionism, is that challenge and trying to solve it.
Wouldn't that challenge and trying to solve it in the quickest terms possible, in the quickest way possible, going back to like an argument earlier that
rushing it essentially and not doing a thorough job? No, we're against that.
No, yeah, and I guess to do a thorough job, practically speaking, and to do a thorough job as soon as possible to prevent as much suffering until we get to that point of achieving that, would require as much advancement, scientific advancement in science and technology and medicine to be able to explore space, to be able to understand how we can prevent this type of life from occurring again. I mean, it's even something at this point I would imagine the best scientists in the world wouldn't really know how to prevent. It seems that life has a tendency of forming from biological molecules that form around, which can aggregate in from gases in the air into liquid, and so it seems like such a inherent part of the fabric of the universe that to really develop the capability to not only end the life as we know it, but any other life that might come up after we're gone, or any other life in anywhere in the universe, would require, I would imagine, a civilization that's thousands of years more advanced than us.
Well, technology is kind of increasing and improving exponentially, right? So it's really naive to say that technology and science isn't going to improve dramatically. And we already control animal populations, right? So just think how many much land has been deforested, right? Or built factories on, data centers, cities even, right? So I mean, this is really basic stuff. The controlling animal populations has existed since the beginning of humanity, essentially. It's something that we've always done, we've always been good at, and that's the easiest and most accessible form of extinctionism, essentially. So there's no reason not to do that. It's perfectly valid, and everything else on top is sugar on top, if you will. But we just need to do as much as possible. But the start of it is already very possible. So it's then just seeing how much more we can do.
And this is in terms of, I guess, if I hope I don't misrepresent your thing, and just to clarify, I do think it'll advance. I think we'll advance quite a bit. Not that we're not going to advance. I just think that we will advance quite a bit. It's going to be far into the future, and as having a goal of that advancement being as rapid as possible, so we can reach a point where we can pull the trigger on that plan. But I think what you're proposing here is kind of this incrementalist, gradualist type of thing where, sure, we can't do all of it, but let's just pick certain species that we can do.
Well, I'm not saying we can't do all of it. That's what you're saying. I'm saying we might be able to.
I thought you were, yeah. Go ahead. How would you execute, like, if we were to make you have all the power controls right now, how would you execute this plan?
We're already executing it. So, this isn't a thought experiment. We're a real movement. Pro-extinction.com, we have dozens of activists, dozens of social media channels. We do street protests. We're all over the internet, growing the movement, recruiting new activists, and working towards this, right? So the thing is, you're asking, how are we gonna, what scientific method am I going to use 1,000 years from now? It's a completely silly question, right? We have to grow the movement to make answering those questions possible.
Because I'm unfamiliar with the movement, what has it achieved so far, and what does it advocate for achieving? Like, in what way is it? If I was to approach the movement and say, what are we doing first, or what have we already achieved? What would that look like?
So yeah, the movement's already been very successful. We've grown, we've developed massively. We're check out our website, and you can read our manifesto. Very lengthy FAQ. So we're developing all of these resources. We have a 23 episode podcast and growing, which is on all major platforms. You can just search Pro Extinction Podcast. It started with one activist, the person that started the movement, not myself. And now we have many activists, right? So every day it gets easier and we get closer to achieving our goals, but we can't, open a laboratory and start doing intensive futuristic science with a small movement. And we have to grow the movement to make it possible, in the same way that if you wanted to cure cancer, you wouldn't ask the person that started the movement, what the hell are you doing? You're not curing cancer, mate. He'd say, well, I have to grow my movement and start gathering resources, and then we can get some scientists on board and we could start working towards it, right?
So I guess the movement, have you guys achieved extinction of any animals yet, or this is still something that you're working towards?
I mean, obviously not, no. And we wouldn't go out and just commit random acts of extinction. That wouldn't really make any sense. I don't know, and I don't really understand the question, to be honest.
I'm trying to understand, when you said the movement already exists and it's already happening, the process of extinction is already happening. I'm trying to understand what.
No, not the process of extinction, but sort of the plan of action is already in process, right? So we're working towards being able to carry out extinction.
And is the plan of action essentially getting as many organizations or bodies of influence to buy into the argument? Is that the first phase of the plan of action?
I mean, we don't really want anyone to buy into the argument. You can't trick people into being empathetic.
Not trick people, just like give them, maybe they never thought about it. When I say buying into it, I didn't mean like in any pejorative way or that you were doing anything bad. I
Yeah,
mean,
so obviously we want the movement to be as big as possible.
so that's the current phase of the movement is
Yeah.
is getting as much buy-in as possible, so that then what's the critical point? What's the inflection point where you have enough people have bought into it, to the movement, and then what's the next step that we pull? What's the next thing we do to actually implement the plan?
So we are actually already working on several plans, and they're in motion. So there's no like specific inflection point, if you will. Just as the movement grows, more options will be available. We'll be able, things that we never thought of will start, coming up essentially, and we'll be able to create the answers to these questions essentially. But we don't really worry about the inflection point or anything like that. We just have to do our best, grow the movement as much as possible, and work towards the solutions. We already have some active solutions in progress. If you want to learn more about it, then you can join us on Discord and ask us about it.
Is it fairly long-winded? Would you be able to like give me a synopsis of one of those plans or solutions right now on stream?
Yeah, so one of our activists, the guy who created the movement, he's actively donating sperm as much as he can to try and get more empathetic and rational genes out into the population. And when you kind of put it in the perspective of, it could take thousands or even millions of years to overthrow the, pro-life, pro-suffering society, the, amoral, immoral society that we have, right? That's kind of a big obstacle, obviously. The power is in the hands of apathetic people like Trump, and dictators run the world essentially. So that's one thing that we're working on. We're also doing tons of scientific research every day about animal populations, space life, how to actually cause extinction as well. How would be the best way to go about it. We're developing the ethics as well, the morality, the messaging, the everything for the movement, right? It has to grow in lots of different ways. We're also, there's lots of scientific research that we're doing that's actually helping us work towards this.
So, I mean, I would imagine. Sorry, it was just kind of. I know it's a serious thing, but that was a little bit funny. I'm not saying this in anything, but just repeating it is gonna make me laugh. I'm not trying to be a jerk.
I know. Go for it. Go for it.
But basically, like, so I would imagine everybody who is part of the movement obviously has a bunch of empathy. They've proven it just by being part of the movement. So then they should all get to work and start donating as much
there is significant
sperm as they can.
I mean, there is significant evidence that the empathy is a biological thing. So, yeah.
I'm just imagining that was funny. I think that it's a good thing. I think it would be off topic to get into that part of it. I don't know if that would be a potent instrument, simply because in terms of the way our brains are and how we are as a human creature, there's a very big hedge. There's a lot of different like epigenetics. Basically, there's a lot of environmental triggers that can create a person who would otherwise be very empathetic to act like a monster, basically. And this is all basically nature's way of hedging for our survival. So people, based on in the crucible of their environment, can be forged into absolute
there is
monsters.
A big genetic component to it as well.
Yeah. So I guess I would imagine, as noble as that cause is, to donate a lot of sperm from empathetic people, I would imagine that wouldn't move the needle as much as we might hope. I guess the other question, I guess, as a hypothetical, as a thought experiment. suppose there's a scientist who develops a bioweapon that can cross infect a bunch of different species, can dive. It's very resilient. They could dive into the oceans and stuff, and almost with a very high probability, if we release it out into the world, this bioweapon can spread across the thing. It's very virulent and basically unalive everybody on the planet. If such a scientist came out and said they've developed something, they brought it to your attention, would you advocate for and wants to release that into the world immediately to end quite a bit of suffering really quickly?
No, I mean, like I say, we have an obligation to try and help life beyond Earth.
And I guess, yeah, I guess that then that would come back to the original thing where we might be a good. What would you predict? Maybe a couple hundred years away from having the ability to meaningfully space travel and be able to even explore. I don't even think with our telescopes and stuff we've explored most of the universe, let alone be able to actually travel to any of these places.
Yeah, I mean, who knows, right? Could be 100 years, could be 200 years. I mean, obviously we'll probably start with the solar system and then travel to some other solar systems and then, but, unless we get really fast travel, it's going to take a long time. But even if we never manage to supersede the speed of light, we could still, potentially have robots or humans, whatever, traveling to other planets. Even if it takes millions of years to reach other planets in our galaxy, that's still a possibility, right? And, life could develop in another part of our galaxy 1 billion years from now. That would give us plenty of time to get there and do something about it. So, even if there's just, crazy amounts of robots spreading out into the galaxy or something, they might actually be able to do something.
I guess, yeah. I mean, yeah, I would imagine then the most feasible format of it would be, yeah, to have the ability to create like this artificial intelligence, sentience type of thing with that mission, to continue technological advancement, perhaps without us existing anymore, and then carry on the mission, and we just cross our fingers and hope that they do a good job. And but yeah. Anyways, I appreciate getting more of this position fleshed out.
One last answer to that last point, because it's an interesting point. We will only, switch to robots continuing the mission and allowing humanity to go extinct if we can be sure that robots have no sort of downside or disadvantage. For example, you may have heard that a solar flare would probably knock out all of the technology on the planet, right? So if that happened and there were no humans and just robots, then the plan would be ruined, essentially. But yeah, that's the only point I was going to make.
I feel like the good hedge for that is uploading our consciousness, what is our sentience into like a digital format that we can put into robots and have some sort of backups for it and whatnot, have underground stuff. And I mean, relegating ourselves to a digital robot type existence rather than a biological one, which if we're okay with that for the sake of exploring the galaxy and the universe and taking other biological species out of their misery, then I would imagine the whole idea of that would just be the clear choice of just, instead of making everybody go out of existence, just putting the majority of the human race and potentially even certain sentient animals that are high functioning enough into like a robotic type of existence, and continuing on the mission would be like a two birds with one stone type of thing. It kind of takes care of the current suffering going on, and then allows us to endeavor to reduce other suffering across the universe. But that was what I meant with the earlier thing that I had. But yeah, I gotta run. I appreciate the conversation. Thanks again, and maybe I can, if I think of any other angles, maybe I can come up again some other time.
Great, yeah, thank you for joining us.
Awesome. Have a good one.
You too. Okay. All right. We've got a lot of haters in the chat today. I had to mute that Mother of God, right? You know, people are saying, "Oh, is she serious?" Oh, you know, let's look into these claims she's making. But this is the same person that was repeatedly spamming, you know, kill yourself, essentially. So they're obviously just a crazy person. Let's not take them seriously. If you guys do find any evidence that Interpol is investigating me, then, you know, I'll take a look at it, sure. Am I on a watch list? Maybe, but, you know, so what if I am? I mean, I'm not saying I am. I don't know. Okay. I'm trying to join someone else in. Right. Yeah. The queue is currently empty. There's just one person in the queue that has been has burnt the bridge and is not allowed to come back on. If you want to join the stream and ask me some questions, now is your chance. Request to join the stream now. I mean, I can even press the button and invite some people. But yeah, let's have another. Oh.
Hello, brother.
Hello. How's it going?
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Everything good? You? Doing good. Thank you, brother. You wanna play a game?
No, I'm good, thanks, man.
You wanna play mage?
No, I'm good.
Why? What's wrong?
I'm doing a stream. Yeah.
What's wrong?
You know?
What?
Yeah.
I said, what's wrong? You know, playing.
Oh, yeah, I managed to kick him. Sweet. God, I thought that was going to be difficult. Wrong button. Right. Does anyone else want to join as a guest? Oh, yes, someone does. Let's have them on. Hello. How's it going?
So you're a full-on atheist?
Yeah.
You don't believe in the creator or nothing?
No.
You don't think that's where the problem lies?
You know, until there's some sort of evidence of a god, then no.
What's your criteria for evidence?
I don't know. I guess just something that would convince me rationally, right?
Is empirical evidence for you?
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's something you have to see, smell, test. In that sense.
Yeah.
Do you go convinced by everything in your life to go through that route?
For big things, definitely.
Oh, well, I mean, okay, well, what's the last experiment you did?
What's the last experiment I did? Oh, God. I mean, I do loads. So, people are constantly commenting on my eyes today. Don't know why. Yeah, I mean, we run a lot of psychological experiments at the pro-extinction movement. You know, I ran one last night. You know, empiricism isn't the only thing, right? You know,
What's the main thing in it for you?
No.
Okay, so what's
you know,
the biggest?
Rationality is more important than.
Oh, right, okay. Have you ever took a DNA test?
Say again?
Have you ever took a DNA test?
No.
Okay. Are you convinced your biological father is your father?
Yeah.
Or do you know he's your father?
I don't know for 100% fact, but I'm pretty confident.
What leads you to the confidence?
No reason to question it.
You have no reason to question whether he is your biological father or not.
A lot of people say I look like him.
Have you ever watched Jeremy Kyle or Jerry Springer?
My mum is pretty, you know, a faithful kind of person. You know, never really.
As that's what she says. Could she be wrong?
Do you want to kind of cut to the point?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So you don't really look for empirical evidence in these sort of scenarios where it matters to you the most.
Scenarios.
Do you agree?
What
So you haven't gone out your way to seek any empirical evidence to know that your biological father is your father. You're just
It's just
convinced
not a
based on the
practical
fact.
way to live life, though, is it?
It's
If
not
you
practical.
question everything, then you're not going to have time to do anything else.
Right, so where's the limit then?
Well, you have to figure that out for yourself, basically.
No, not really, because I mean, to you, a
Yeah,
big thing.
you
Well,
know, if you want to go through life in a practical way, you
no,
can't just question
you just said to me that it depends on what you're seeking for, of what you need empirical evidence for. So if it's a big thing for you, then you would require empirical evidence. Could
Yeah.
your biological father not being your biological father, is that massive for you?
I mean, it's just not important, really. So
It's not important.
Correct.
So for you, it's not important to know if he's actually your real father or not.
Correct.
But to someone else, it could be massively important.
Well, that's not me, is it?
Well, it's just feelings, isn't it? But I mean, is it rational? Putting your emotions to aside, would it be rational for you to be convinced that your biological is your father without knowing he's your father?
I mean, yeah.
So you don't need empirical evidence to know these things.
Like I said, I don't know it, right? I assume it.
No, but you don't know. Have you had any doubt that your biological father is your father?
No.
So that's still. So you would more be close into knowing than believing.
No. Like I said, assuming.
No, because if you've no doubt, then you literally 100%.
No, I don't have no doubt, because that would imply certainty, right? But I don't, spend my day doubting it.
Have you ever thought about it?
Not really.
So then, how do you know? Oh my god! Right, okay. So could there be a possibility where your biological father could not be your biological father?
I've already said yes.
So there's a possibility there.
Yeah.
Right. But you're still happy enough to know that you haven't done anything there that to prove it or test it or anything. You're just happily convinced, knowing that that is your biological father.
If I had a reason to look into it, maybe it would be different.
So if no reason came upon you, then you wouldn't bat an eye. No.
Well, we have to do things for a reason, right? You don't just do things for no reason.
Do you think everyone that's lived up in society till now had a doubt that their biological father was their father?
Don't know. Do you think the flying spaghetti monster exists?
If I had a good enough reason to know it exists, then maybe, yeah. If you can make logical sense of it, then yeah. Like you said, we can be rational.
I suppose I see where you're going with this. The thing is, we have to, live and behave in a practical way, right? If I've got loads of things on today, then I'm not going to spend the whole day worrying about whether or not my dad is my biological father, right?
What gives you a convincing rational reason that he is your biological father?
Oh, it's what I've been told. He acts and behaves in the way that you would expect a biological father to.
No, you can't say how you expect a biological father would.
I've never really, had a reason to doubt it.
But you're easily convinced.
I think most people are easily convinced that their parents are their parents.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, this is you now. Remember, we're not talking about the people.
Well, no,
ever since you were young, you were easily convinced that he's your biological father, and you never had a doubt.
They pulled the wool right over my eyes, yeah.
No, they didn't, because you didn't have any doubt. So you can't say they pulled the wool over my eyes when you're saying I have no doubt that he can't be my biological father.
It's not that I have no doubt, it's that I don't have a reason to doubt it.
So basically you never had a doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can't say I don't have a doubt. I tend to say I never had a reason, but then you don't have a doubt.
I suppose it would be important to say that I don't have certainty, right?
Absolutely.
So there you go. It's impractical to doubt everything, right?
Right, so you wouldn't really require any sort of testable evidence to sort of accept that he's your biological father. So up until now, you're convinced. So if tomorrow your actual biological father came out and said, "Look, son, I'm not your actual biological father," then that changes everything for you, no?
Like what?
or will you just then have another happily day? Would today's be as good as yesterday if he told you that you're not his biological father? Would you be upset?
I don't know.
You don't know.
Don't know.
I mean, you can't even put yourself in a hypothetical reason that if your father told you today that he wasn't your father, you wouldn't know how to react.
Depends on the situation, doesn't it?
What do you mean? What situation? He's telling you that he's not your father.
Well, you know, he
What
might say,
situation do you want to be in?
I'm not your real dad, but Jeff Bezos is.
No. Let's forget who is. Let's forget who is. All these years, you've been convinced that he's your actual father, and then today he's told you he's not, or tomorrow he tells you he's not. Will that change your life in any way?
I'm not your real dad, but this billionaire is.
No, forget who could be his.
He's going to give you all of his money.
Forget who could be your dad. Forget that. Just he's saying that he's not your father. Will that change your life?
I think I answered that question, right? If we want to sort of steel man that guy's argument and cut to the chase, he's, I don't know, asking, you know, should we question whether or not God exists? I don't know. Give me a reason to do so, and, you know, we can think about it. But we actually answered a similar question earlier on the stream. Even if God did exist, and this was all part of his master plan or something, empathetic people would still fight to prevent animals and babies from being tortured. So it doesn't really change extinctionism. Right? You know? God would have to come down and, you know, essentially prove that babies being tortured is a good thing. So until that happens, we are going to fight against babies being abused. It's pretty simple. Okay, would anyone else like to join the stream? We have a slot open now. Come and give us your opinions. Should life be made extinct to stop unfair suffering? Do you think that, you know, life forms deserve to get tortured and abused? Do you think that the extreme suffering of being eaten alive can be made up for by, you know, someone playing Xbox? Is that a good trade? Is that a good balance? You know, animal abuse, is that an acceptable trade for you to have a bit of fun? You know, if you had to go and torture the babies yourself before you could play Xbox, would you do it? Maybe not, right? But if someone said they're going to get tortured unless you say I won't play Xbox, would you give up your Xbox? Most people are saying no. I want my Xbox. Let them get tortured. Extinctionism is saying your Xbox is not worth babies getting abused and tortured. Right? So, yeah, let's stop and prevent billions of more years of babies and innocent life forms of all forms, you know, whether it's adults, babies, children, from being tortured and abused. Just so that the lucky ones, the top 1%, can brain rot and have a good life. a good life of pizza and Xbox, you know, while babies are being abused and tortured. Forced to exist and to suffer the worst things imaginable. Most life forms born on this planet actually get eaten alive as babies. Over 99.9% of life born on this planet are wild animals. The vast majority. And they have the worst conditions, the worst suffering. They are effectively babies that just get forced to exist to be eaten alive. Do you think that's a good thing? Do you think that's something we should stop? Hopefully you would say yes. Do you think that we should have a zero tolerance policy on all suffering? Yeah, you know, of course we should. That's what extinctionism is about, because you can't provide safety from being forced to exist and from extremely terrible lives without extinction, right? Non-existence is safety. And, you know, crucially, it's about prevention of the generation of new victims, reproduction, right? That's one of the most important parts of extinction. You know, because it's about preventing billions of years of more pointless suffering. Wild animals have never had their conditions significantly improve. or get worse even, really. You know, their suffering is very much independent of humanity, and it's a myth that humans are responsible for animal suffering. Even farm animals, right? Sure, they don't have to exist, but the point is that it's more about the actual life lived rather than just the death. You know, if you're born with brain damage or physical diseases, physical ailments, chronic pain, for example, depression, you know, supposedly even animals can get depression, right? Genetically, schizophrenia, stuff like that, terrible things, right? We should have a zero tolerance policy on creating these victims and allowing them and making them suffer. It's wrong. Just so that some, you know, the top 1% can have fun and watch some sunsets, you know, and ignore all of the babies getting abused selfishly, you know? Why would you support something gross and disgusting like that? Don't you think this view is dangerous because any action would be murder? Well, firstly, we're against individual acts of violence and murder. That would just cause chaos. It would be bad in every way. We need an organized transition to non-existence and to no more reproduction, right? The vast majority of the victims we want to help are in the future. They are guaranteed to be forced to exist and to be tortured for their entire lives unless we stop it. So, you know, we're on the side of the worst victims, essentially. And everyone else is on the side of the lucky ones. What about the lucky ones, though? What about the top 1% that's having a great time? You know, doesn't that justify, you know, babies getting tortured to death? No, absolutely not. No baby should get tortured to death. And you are effectively saying that should happen so that others can have a bit of fun. And, you know, that's all it is a bit of fun. Life is a privilege for the lucky ones, right? For everyone else, it's a hell, a prison that they can't escape and that they're being tortured in. But, you know, there's no sort of great meaning to life, right? I mean, look at most humans running around, okay? They're horrible to each other. They're brain rotting, watching stupid TikTok live streams. You know, they're not really doing anything worthwhile anyway. And even if they were having some incredible life, right? That doesn't mean it's okay to let animals and babies, humans as well, get abused and tortured. Oh, that's a very sad way of viewing the world. Well, you know, what's your way of viewing the world? Ignore the victims and just be happy despite their suffering. That's the sad way of viewing the world, right? You're a part of everything you're describing. Well, yeah, I was forced to exist as well. Is philosophy a glitch in the thought process since it completely goes against what it is? Yeah, we would say that philosophy is a complete waste of time, right? It's a circle jerk, basically. Philosophy has achieved virtually, essentially nothing throughout its entire existence. Suffering-focused ethics are the only thing that makes sense and are important, right? Philosophy is just mental masturbation, basically. Helping others is what matters, and anything else is just an absolute waste of time. Yeah, cannabis, that was the joke. I think it kind of, slightly went over your head there. Would anyone like to join the stream? Now's your chance. Now's your chance to join. Ask me some questions. There's a lot of haters in the chat. Come and hate me to my face, guys. Unless you're afraid. Chicken. Come on, let's do it. Let's get another debate going. The queue is literally empty right now. So let's just take some questions from the chat. So the point of your view, if no action can be taken, it's a crazy question. Maybe rephrase that one, Tim. I don't understand it. The irony of someone sat on TikTok. Well, I'm actually doing activism for the movement. So I mean, the other day I had literally 60 viewers live. I probably would have more right now, but TikTok is restricting the ever-loving shit out of my lives because they use AI, basically. And if it doesn't like what you say, then you're screwed. But yeah, essentially we're trying to grow the movement, get the message out there, get more activists on board, and get more people interested. That's how every movement works, right? It's how the anti-slavery movement works, the veganism movement works. You have to go out, you have to speak to people, get the message out there, and try and get people to listen and grow the movement, hopefully get new activists on board who can also do the same thing that you're doing. TikTok Lives is only something I've recently started doing. I've been in the movement for a year. I've been doing a 23 episode and growing podcast, which are 1 to 2 hours long on all major platforms. Just search Pro Extinction Podcast. I created the website recently. I've got obviously quite a big TikTok channel. Well, in terms of, I've got dozens of videos. I've got YouTube channel. I started writing a book about it. So, we're doing lots of things. This is just one thing of many, essentially. Let's see. The queue is still empty. I don't know if that's because I've been restricted or people are just can't be bothered to come on. But yeah, if you want to come on and debate, give me some opinions, request to join as a guest now. If there were no people, how could there be suffering? Well, there'd be animals as well. So if there were no people and no animals, then there wouldn't be any suffering. That's correct. Of course, it's also about the risk of suffering. So again, one of the main challenges for extinctionists is to prevent more life and suffering from coming back, right? It's as vast and thorough as possible for the sake of the victims who are quite literally depending on it. Okay, well, the stream is dying down, and maybe if I do another one later, I won't have such crazy restrictions on my account or something, and be a bit more interesting. So yeah, I'm going to take a break for now, guys. I might come back in a couple hours or something like that. If you want to talk to us at any time, you can Google search Abolish Suffering Discord. It's the top link. You can come and chat with us, ask us questions. Follow me on TikTok, and I'll be live again soon. You can check out my YouTube channel, Universal Extinction, or search Pro Extinction on YouTube. We've got lots of people with lots of channels on Instagram, all over social media. Check out our website as well. Read our manifesto. Read our frequently asked questions. A lot of the questions you've got are probably answered. We've got something like 35 questions and answers on our full FAQ. So lots of your questions are probably already answered there. But yeah, I'm going to call it for now. So thank you for joining us, everyone, and we will see you